Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
It's great to be here.
So today we're going to be looking at In the Light of Truth by Abdrushin.
Oh, yeah. This is a fascinating one.
Have you heard of this one?
Yeah, I've dipped into it a little bit.
Yeah, it can be a little bit dense.
It can be pretty heavy.
It can be a tough read sometimes. So we're here to break it down and try to make it a little more accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that's really interesting about In the Light of Truth is that it's grappling with some really big questions.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
About life, the universe, and like the meaning of life, the afterlife.
Yeah.
Even things like karma and justice and...
Yeah, it's a collection of lectures, right?
It is, yeah. It's a collection of lectures that Abdrushin gave, and they span quite a wide range of topics.
Yeah, and they cover a lot of ground. So we're going to try to distill it down to some of the core concepts and
to the nuggets of wisdom that we can extract from this work.
Okay, so why don't we start with the foundation?
Okay.
What is Abdrushin's view of God?
Yeah, that's a great place to start because it's a little bit different than what you might find in some other religious traditions.
Yeah, he talks about God as unsubstantial.
Right.
I don't know, when I first read that, that kind of threw me for a loop. What does that even mean?
It's a head scratcher for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to understand that when Abdrushin uses the term unsubstantial, he's not saying that God doesn't exist.
Yeah.
He's saying that God is beyond our comprehension in a way.
Okay.
That God is beyond form, beyond anything that we can really grasp with our...
So it's not like the classic image of God as an old man with a beard sitting on a throne.
Exactly. It's not that kind of anthropomorphic idea of God that we often see.
Yeah. Okay.
So one way to think about it is you can see the effects of the sun.
Okay.
Right. You can see the warmth. You can feel it on your skin.
Right.
But you can't actually hold the sun in your hand.
Right. It's too vast. It's too powerful. And it's kind of the same idea with Abdrushin's concept of God, that God is this force that is so much greater than ourselves that we can't fully comprehend it with our limited human minds.
So it's more about recognizing God's presence through the effects we see.
Exactly.
Through the creation, through the workings of the universe,
Right. So how did that lead into his idea of creation then?
Well, so Abdrushin takes this idea further by explaining that creation is not a one-time event.
Okay.
It's not like God created the universe billions of years ago and then just kind of stepped back and is watching it unfold.
Right.
He says that creation is an ongoing process.
Okay.
That's happening all the time, and that it's driven by what he calls God's will.
So God's will is an active force in the universe.
It's an active force. It's a living power, he calls it.
Okay. That's
constantly flowing through everything and shaping and sustaining all of creation. So it's like a constant unfolding, a constant becoming.
This is not like a static thing that happened.
Yeah, it's not a fixed point in the past.
Okay.
It's a dynamic process that's happening all the time.
Okay, so God's will is an active force.
Yes.
That's shaping the universe and everything in it.
Right, and this will, this power operates according to a set of laws, what Abdrushin calls the immutable laws of creation.
Okay, the immutable laws. So these are kind of like the laws of physics, but for the spiritual realm.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's like the underlying principles that govern how everything works.
Okay, can you give me an example of one of these laws?
Sure. So one of the most important laws that Abdrushin talks about is the law of reciprocal action.
Okay, what is that?
And this is basically the idea that every action has a corresponding reaction.
Okay, like cause and effect.
Exactly, like cause and effect. Like if you throw a ball against a wall, it's going to bounce back to you.
Right.
And the same principle applies in the spiritual realm, he says, that our thoughts, our words, our actions, they all create ripples that eventually come back to us.
So that's where karma comes in.
That's one way to look at it, yeah.
Right.
The consequences of our actions come back to us.
Okay.
But it's not about punishment.
Okay.
It's more about understanding that we're all connected and that our choices have consequences both for ourselves and for others.
So it's all about this interconnectedness.
Yeah.
That everything we do affects everything else.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So we have this all-encompassing God.
Right.
And his will that's shaping the universe according to these immutable laws.
Right.
But where do we fit into all of this?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah. What does Abdrushin say about humans and the role of humanity in all of this?
So Abdrushin has this really interesting view of where humans come from. He says that we're not just random beings that popped up on this planet.
Okay.
He believes that we originate from a purely spiritual realm, which he calls paradise.
Okay, paradise.
Yeah.
So we came from paradise.
We came from paradise. He says that we're like little sparks of divine energy that have descended into the material world to experience life and to grow.
Why would we want to leave paradise?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And I think even in paradise, there's this kind of yearning for growth, for experience, for expansion.
Okay, so it's not like a punishment?
No. It's more like we're here on a mission to learn and evolve, to become more conscious, more aware of who we truly are, and to experience the richness and the diversity of creation.
But we traded paradise for a chance to learn and grow.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
Seems like a big trade.
It is a big trade.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that makes humans unique, according to Abdrushin. He says that we have free will. We get to choose how we navigate this journey. We're not just robots following a pre-programmed script.
Okay, so we have a choice in the matter.
Exactly.
We're not just along for the ride.
Right. We have the power to make decisions to shape our own destiny.
And that's both exciting and terrifying.
It is.
At the same time.
Absolutely. It's both empowering and a little bit daunting to realize that we have this much freedom.
Right.
But it also means that we need to be mindful of our choices.
Because they have consequences.
They have real consequences.
Okay, so every little decision we make affects the entire universe.
Well, maybe not every single decision.
Okay.
But overall, the way we live our lives, the kind of energy we put out into the world, it all adds up.
Okay.
And Abdrushin says that humanity's collective volition actually influences the course of creation.
Hold on. Volition. That's a new word. What is that?
So volition is a key concept in Abdrushin's teachings, and it's basically the power of our will, combined with our deepest desires and intentions.
Okay.
It's the driving force behind all of our actions.
So it's not just what we do, it's also what we want and what we're striving for.
Yeah, it's the core of our being, in a way. It's what motivates us. It's what drives us. And Abdrushin says that the quality of our volition, whether it's positive or negative, actually affects the world around us.
So we're not just passive passengers.
No.
We're actually co-creators in a way.
That's right.
With God shaping the universe with our choices.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to think about it. And it kind of leads us into the next part of Abdrushin's teachings, which is about understanding the consequences of our actions and how we can learn from our mistakes and grow.
Okay, but before we move on, I think we need to let all of this sink in for a minute.
Sure.
Because,
take a breath.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
This idea of an unsubstantial God. These immutable laws are volition shaping creation.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing.
And we've only just scratched the surface here, but hopefully you're starting to get a sense of how Abdrushin's view of the world differs from maybe what we traditionally think.
Yeah, and it feels like he's offering us a more active role in our own spiritual development.
That's one of the key takeaways, I think, from Abdrushin's work, is that we're not just passive recipients of grace, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We are active participants in our own spiritual evolution.
Yeah. Okay. I'm definitely intrigued to hear more.
Right.
So let's move on to the next part of our deep dive and explore what Abdrushin has to say about humanity's journey and how we can find our way back to the light.
So we talked about this idea that we come from paradise, a purely spiritual realm, and now we're here in the material world to learn and grow. But as you can see, things aren't exactly perfect down here on Earth, are they?
No, not at all.
It kind of makes you wonder what happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much suffering. There's so much conflict.
Right. How did we get so far off track?
Yeah.
If we really did come from this place of harmony and light, like what went wrong?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, Abdrushin has a really interesting take on this, and he talks about what he calls the fall of man.
The fallen man.
But it's not the traditional story of Adam and Eve eating a forbidden fruit.
Okay, so no apple, no snake.
No, it's not that kind of literal interpretation.
So what's his version?
So for Abdrushin, the fall is less about a single event and more about this gradual turning away from the light.
Okay.
He says that as humans develop their intellect, their ability to reason and analyze, they started to rely on it too much.
Okay.
They began to prioritize the material world over their spiritual connection.
So it's not that intellect is bad.
Right.
But we kind of started to overemphasize it.
Exactly. We got so caught up in figuring out the how of things that we forgot to ask the why.
Okay.
We started to see ourselves as separate from the divine, from each other, from nature, and that separation created this kind of darkness. a disharmony that led to a lot of the problems that we see in the world today.
So we kind of lost that sense of interconnectedness.
Exactly.
With everything.
Yeah, we started to see ourselves as isolated individuals rather than part of this greater whole.
And that led to the problems.
And that led to a lot of the problems that we see. Yeah, the suffering, the conflict, the disharmony.
Okay, so we've fallen away from the light.
Right.
Is there a way back?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And Abdrushin believed that there absolutely is a way back.
Okay.
And he points to Jesus as a guide,
okay,
as someone who showed us the path to redemption.
But isn't that what most religions teach?
You're right. A lot of religions focus on Jesus.
Yeah.
What's different about Abdrushin's view?
Yeah, what's different?
Is that he saw Jesus's mission not about dying on the cross to atone for our sins, but about bringing the truth to humanity.
So it's not about blindly accepting Jesus' sacrifice?
No.
As a way to get into heaven?
It's not about that kind of transaction.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing and living the truth that Jesus brought.
So it's more about following his teaching.
Exactly.
Putting his words into action.
Yeah, it's about striving to embody that same kind of love and compassion that Jesus demonstrated. So Abdrushin is saying that redemption comes from aligning our volition with God's will. It's about making conscious choices that bring us closer to the light.
And he didn't stop there, right?
He didn't stop there.
He also talked about...
He went on to talk about a future figure that he called the Son of Man.
The Son of Man.
Who would come to usher in a new era of spiritual awakening and judgment.
Judgment? Now that sounds a little scary.
I know it can sound a little intimidating.
Yeah.
But Abdrushin's concept of judgment isn't about punishment or condemnation.
Okay.
It's not about God smiting the wicked.
Okay, good.
It's more like a natural process of purification.
Okay.
A kind of cosmic sorting that would separate those who are aligned with the light from those who are still clinging to the darkness.
So it's kind of like separating the wheat from the chaff.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Okay.
And Abdrushin emphasized that we're living in a particularly crucial time.
Okay.
That this process of judgment is already underway.
It's happening now.
It's happening now, he said. And he urged his readers to prepare themselves.
How do we prepare?
By refining their volition.
Okay.
By making conscious choices that align with the divine will.
So it's not about passively waiting for the end of the world.
No, it's not about sitting around and waiting to be saved. It's about actively working on our own spiritual development.
Okay, so we have to take action.
Take action.
We have to make an effort.
And become more aligned with the...
Exactly. And that's where Abdrushin's practical guidance comes in. He offers a lot of specific advice on how we can cultivate our intuition, purify our thoughts, and strengthen our connection to the divine.
Okay, so let's dive into that. But before we move on, this is some pretty heavy stuff.
It is. It's deep.
Yeah, we've talked about the fall of man. We've talked about judgment.
Right.
We talked about Jesus and the Son of Man.
It's a lot to process.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah, and it's okay to feel a little overwhelmed by it all.
Yeah, and I think it's important to approach these topics with humility.
Absolutely.
And an open mind. Yeah, Abdrushin's teachings aren't meant to be dogma.
Right.
They're meant to be thought-provoking.
Yeah.
To challenge our assumptions.
Okay.
And encourage us to question the way we see the world.
So it's more about starting a journey.
Exactly.
Self-discovery.
It's a process of unfolding.
Yeah.
And it's a journey we can all take regardless of our background or beliefs.
Okay, so let's dive into that journey.
Okay.
What specific advice does Abdrushin give us for navigating these complex spiritual waters? So we've explored Abdrushin's view of God, the universe, and humanity's place in it all.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, right?
It is. It's a lot. But what I'm really curious about is what he has to say about what we do with all this.
Right. Like, how do we put this into practice?
Yeah, exactly. How do we actually make changes in our lives?
Yeah.
You know, to align ourselves with the light and all that.
Well, Abdrushin doesn't just leave us with these big concepts. You know, he actually provides a lot of practical guidance.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and one of the places he starts is with the kind of fresh perspective on the Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments, huh?
Yeah.
I always thought of those as, kind of a religious thing.
Right.
Like rules.
Yeah, a lot of people see them as like a set of strict rules that you have to follow. But Abdrushin saw them a little differently.
Okay.
So he saw them more as guidelines for living in harmony with the laws of creation.
Right.
Those immutable laws we talked about.
Right.
So it's not about blind obedience. Right. It's about understanding the principles behind these commandments and applying them to our lives.
Okay, so can you give me an example?
Sure. So he talks about thou shalt not steal.
Okay.
And he says that applies not just to physical possessions, but also to things like ideas, intellectual property, respecting what belongs to others in all its form.
Right. So it's about expanding our understanding of those principles. It's not just about the literal interpretation. It's about the deeper meaning.
Yeah. And, beyond the 10 Commandments, he also talks a lot about cultivating our intuition.
Intuition.
Yeah, that inner voice that we all have, but that often gets drowned out by the noise of the world.
Oh, yeah.
All the distractions and the busyness of modern life.
How do we do that?
How do we cultivate it?
Yeah.
Well, he emphasizes the importance of stillness, taking time for quiet reflection.
Good.
Things like meditation, spending time in nature.
Okay, so making space for that.
Exactly, creating space to connect with ourselves.
Okay.
To listen to that inner wisdom.
Yeah.
And he goes even further than that.
Okay.
And he talks about the power of our volition.
There's that word again, volition?
Yeah, volition. Remember, it's that combination of our will and our deepest desires.
Right.
And he says that our thoughts and intentions actually shape our reality.
Okay.
Both individually and collectively.
So it's not just about what we do.
No.
It's about what we think and feel.
Exactly. It's about the energy we're putting out into the world. Yeah, so he emphasizes the importance of purifying our thoughts.
Yeah.
Of consciously choosing to focus on the positive, the good, the beautiful.
Right.
And he believed that by doing so, we not only improve our own lives, but we contribute to a more harmonious world.
So we're all connected.
Exactly. It all comes back to that interconnectedness.
Right.
And finally, Abdrushin really stresses the importance of living in the present moment.
Living in the present moment, that's a tough one.
I know it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
But he saw dwelling on the past or worrying about the future as distractions.
Oh, for sure.
That keep us from fully experiencing life.
Yeah.
And connecting with our true selves.
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in those thoughts.
It is. It's a constant battle.
Yeah.
But Abdrushin suggests that by bringing our attention to the present moment, to the simple things, we can cultivate a sense of peace and gratitude.
Okay.
Savoring each experience.
So appreciating the little things.
Exactly, appreciating the everyday miracles that we often take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Like a beautiful sunset, a delicious meal, a meaningful conversation. Yeah. Those are the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And by focusing on those, we start to shift our perspective.
Okay.
From what's lacking to what's abundant. From fear to love, from darkness to light.
Wow, this has been incredibly insightful.
Yeah.
Abdrushin's work is definitely complex, but there's also a beautiful simplicity to it.
I agree.
Yeah, it's all about aligning ourselves with our true nature.
Yeah.
With that divine spark within each of us.
And realizing our potential.
Yeah, so for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to learn more, where would you suggest they start?
Well, of course, I highly recommend reading In the Light of Truth for yourself.
Of course.
It's a book that you can revisit time and time again, and each time you'll probably get something new out of it.
Yeah.
And there are also groups and communities dedicated to studying Abdrushin's work, so, you can connect with others who are interested in these ideas.
Right.
And learn from each other.
Yeah, and I think what resonates most with me is this message of hope. That no matter where we are on our journey, we always have the power to choose the light.
Absolutely.
To turn towards love and truth.
That's the beauty of free will.
Yeah.
We always have a choice.
And to make the world a more beautiful place.
Yeah. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up our deep dive into In the Light of Truth.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
We hope this has sparked your curiosity.